Hey, Peter Martin.
What's up?
Here's to those early summer days.
Yeah.
A warm breeze, a sunny meadow, children catching fireflies at dusk. Here's to a slow float down the Merrimack River with 15 of your crunkest friends. Here's to jams in sweaty garages, playing the tunes of Glory Days with your buddies.
Yeah.
A Van Halen poster on the wall.
I don't know about that.
A non-alcoholic IPA in your hand.
Maybe.
Here's to over-reharmonizing jazz classics. Here's to moo chords. Here's to dotted quarter notes. Here's to Shirley Horn. Here's to life.
And I'm Peter Martin.
And you're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Music Explored.
Explored, brought to you today by Open Studio. Go to openstudiojazz.com for all your jazz lesson needs. And Peter, go to Open Studio Music on YouTube to check out some of our performance tracks that we've been making. We're putting together an album of some of our performances. Some stuff from here on the You'll Hear It podcast. Some original music that we've been writing.
Yes.
Maybe
a little bit of what they just heard. Maybe we'll throw that on. Maybe we'll do another version of it
afterwards. A little Here's to Life featuring Caleb Kirby on the drums and Bob DeBoo on the bass. Yeah.
Is that recognizable? I think so.
We're taking it out. But
Here's to life,
fun. Here's to love.
Yeah. Here's to you.
So we are talking about Shirley Horn's Here's to Life today. I know this is one of your all-time faves.
It is.
And actually, I had heard of it, but I didn't really give it a fair shake until I started hanging with you, and you were like, no, this is the one. This one right here.
Right. So I think this is 1992 release, recorded in 1991. So you would have been a young and then maybe not even real into this kind of jazz.
Not emotionally mature enough to understand why this is so impactful. But tell me about your relationship with this album.
Yeah, well, I was kind of barely emotionally able to. I was young. But so when this record came out, I was doing some stuff with like Roy Hargrove and Josh Redman I was a little bit on the scene in New York, whatever. But especially the years after this, like 93, 94, the record came out in 92. This was the early 90s, kind of the Young Lions period. But it was also a really interesting period for several wonderful vocalists that had a little bit of a renaissance, or at least a little bit of a highlighting. I'm talking Shirley Horn. I'm talking Betty Carter.
That's right.
I'm talking Carmen McRae, although we would lose the wonderful Carmen McRae very shortly thereafter. But I got to hear all of them. I got to work with Betty Carter in 91, and I heard Shirley Horn on tour over in Europe, on my first tour in 91 when I was with Betty Carter. I got to get a little bit of Betty's reaction to Shirley and kind of find out some of the love they had for each other and a little bit of the competitiveness.
Well, tell me about that. What was that like to see those two, in this, like you said, this sort of resurgence in both of their careers?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I didn't fully understand it at the time, but I sort of pieced it together later. Betty very much always kept going. So they're about the same age. I think Betty's just a few years older, was a few years older than Shirley, but they're basically contemporaries as well as Carmen. And so, they were coming out already in like the late 50s, both of them. But Betty very much was not only an amazing singer and then later on mentor to trios, to many great musicians, but she was also an entrepreneur, started her own record label, really was very scrappy at a time when female, especially African-American female vocalists, it was kind of unheard of some of the things that she did, and she created her own little empire that was amazing and just amazing singer, but a little bit, I wouldn't say the opposite of Shirley Horn, because Betty was an amazing ballad singer as well, but she was more named, her nickname that I believe, did Miles give it to her? Betty Bebop.
Right.
She was scatting and singing and playing with the melodies and doing up-tempo stuff. Wonderful at ballads.
Incredible up-tempo singer.
Yeah.
Exactly. All-time great.
All-time great.
Yeah.
Incredible. In doing stuff in Seven. But Shirley Horn, as we're going to hear today, very much known for her ballads. Although Shirley could do some, I have some examples of some up-tempo stuff, but they're not really on this record. Mm-hmm. This is very much, Shirley Horn with strings, Here's to Life. This is very luxurious record with incredible sound and ballad and just artistry of her voice, but also of her piano playing.
Absolutely.
So that was another difference. So Shirley was very much, I'm going to say almost pianist first, and we're going to hear her. Well, let's go ahead and hear her talk about this. I think that this will frame things well.
How I started.
This is Shirley.
I was influenced, I guess, around 12, 13 years of age by Earl Garner.
By Earl Garner?
Earl Garner, right. I used to, by ear, I'd play his music note for note. I was at school. They used to call me Earl Garner Queen,
Earl Garner.
because I loved his music.
Yes.
And he was the first pianist that really kind of blew me away.
Right.
Yeah.
And did your parents decide you should take a classical?
Yes, I was studying at 4 years old.
At 4 years
4,
you started?
Yes.
Wow.
And jazz came into your life at 12.
Yeah, around 12.
What did your teachers say to that?
Well, there was no problem because I was very good with the classics. That was my love. At the time I was studying Earl Garner, I was also studying Rachmaninoff and Debussy. So it didn't interfere.
And singing came later, or?
Yes, singing. My parents didn't know that I was sneaking a gig, so to speak, right?
Ah.
So she goes on to, it's a really fascinating interview, but that was much later. That was like 1920.
It reminds me of Roberta Flack's story as well, which would be a little bit later than that, but starting off with a lot of classical music and then getting into jazz and then singing.
Right, Nina Simone as well.
Yeah.
And like Roberta Flack, she's from, Shirley's from Washington, D.C. She went to Howard, pre-college division, and then ended up going. She got into Juilliard, but her family couldn't afford to send her to Juilliard. So she ended up going to Howard and doing classical. But then she started gigging, around in D.C. I think it was in Georgetown, or not Georgetown. There was an area, U Street or something, where the clubs were. And obviously an amazing vocalist, but I think it's very revealing because I've always felt that she's kind of a pianist first vocalist, right? And so Betty Carter could play piano, Carmen McRae could play piano and stuff. Sarah Vaughan could play very well apparently, but they were very comfortable away from the piano. Shirley was mostly, to me, all of her classic recordings that I really love, she was always at the piano as well. I think it's an integral part of her artistry. She's never far from the piano on this entire record. She did do some stuff, I think, for when Quincy signed her at Mercury in the early 60s where she was away from the piano. I think it was a little bit less successful. Not that the piano was a crutch for her, but because she was so great at it.
Yeah.
And it was such a part of her artistry,
Totally agree, yeah.
So
underrated as a pianist. And there's some good YouTube videos, too, of her playing the piano and playing with her band, and definitely worth checking out.
Yes, absolutely. So the period of this kind of early 90s for this and hearing her, she was only 57 at the time. I was like, wow, She's so amazing. And I thought of 57 is very old. It turns out I'm fast approaching that.
You're getting close.
But it was like such an interesting period because I feel like in a lot of ways she was at her peak. Betty Carter was at her peak.
Yeah.
Carmen for sure. But it's like I got so many chances to hear them, to hang with them, hang with Shirley. And she was just a beautiful person. What you hear on this record is very much, in my experience, the way she was, sort of to hang with. And I used to ask her about different voicings and stuff. And she was like, no, Peter, I want to check. What is that thing you're playing? I was like, don't worry about that. Some stuff I stole from you. I was trying to get,
I love this album because it is this sort of resurgence time. And I think it's probably the best example of a resurgent, like a third act in a career.
Yes.
That is just an amazing third act that she has here.
Right.
And this album was incredibly well received and I think has stood the test of time.
Absolutely. And so just to kind of frame it, the year before she came out in 91 with You Won't Forget Me, which was her first really big, massive hit. And it was an important record because Miles played on it. Miles famously did not play as a sideman on very many recordings. I mean, Something Else, Cannonball Adderley, The Occasional Thing. But there's a whole history with Miles. He really kind of first put Shirley on the map in like 1959, 1960, when he was playing at the Village Vanguard and had Shirley playing the opposite sets. He told Lorraine and Max about her, actually. And then she started to get a lot of notoriety. Quincy Jones first heard her there. So, they always had a very special connection. He recorded this and then died in 91, actually.
Wow.
I think they recorded it in 90. Miles passed in 91. But let's just listen to a little bit of this, You Won't Forget Me, because this is coming just a year before Here's to Life.
Forget me. Though you may try, I'm part of memories. Too wonderful to die.
Ooh, Miles. Shirley's chorus. Oh.
And it will happen that now and then you'll fall to wondering if we shouldn't have tried again.
But this was big when it
so
came out.
good,
It's so good.
good.
This record, for some reason, is a little bit gotten lost even more than Here's to Life. I think it's some of Miles's, like, people forget, like, what he still had right up until the end. And I think that's sort of the best example of that. Shirley's accompaniment, I know Miles loved that. That's what I'm saying, man. She was a pianist first. There's so many different things. I want to play a little bit because we're going to be listening to a lot of ballads just so people don't get it twisted out here. This is from 92. You were mentioning some of the YouTube stuff. This is actually, I think, on YouTube, live at Newport. So the year this record came out with her trio. Big shout out to Steve Williams and Charles Abels, her longtime trio on electric bass and drums. I heard them play so many times. Such a big part of the Shirley Horn sound during this third act kind of period, and you can't state their importance enough. They were always wearing tuxedos. Shirley was very much about the tuxedos with the trio, but they just complimented her and knew her arrangements and tunes so well.
You got to keep it classy.
Got to keep it classy.
A lot of folks don't know that Peter Martin insists on tuxedos around here at Open Studio, but only when we're deep into work. So we don't do it for the show.
No, we change.
But as soon as we get done with this, we change into tuxedos, yeah.
So this is a little bit of Just in Time, Newport, 1992. Going into her piano solo.
I know this one.
It's got a little hump in it, right? So she had that. I mean, obviously. And if you heard her live, you heard a lot of that. But a lot of people that heard You Won't Forget Me, Here's to Life during this period, didn't get all that. I want to jump back just a little bit. I know we're all over the place, but then we're going to get into Here's to Life. This is 1961, Sometimes I'm Happy. This for years was released as live at the Village Vanguard, but it was actually live in St. Louis, just a few blocks from here at Gaslight Square.
No way.
Absolutely, yeah. It was titled Vanguard because people thought that would, I don't know, somebody thought it would be more popular, but this was corrected. And this is what Shirley sounded like 30 years before what you're about to hear on Here's to Life.
We're going to do some requests. The first part of the set, okay?
This is with Daryl Mixon's father on bass.
John Mixon.
John Mixon.
Yeah.
What pianist does that remind you of right there?
Sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm blue. My disposition
Oh, Red Garland there.
Little Red Garland, little Bill
depends
Evans,
on
Miles.
you. I never mind the rain from the skies, as long as I can see the sunshine in your eyes.
But it almost sounds like
Sounds like a St. Louis club, not the Village Vanguard.
exactly. I know. I'm like, but I mean, the thing is, it sounds like sometimes like the way she's back phrasing and
Yeah.
like, but then she's comping on top. That's so hard. Like it sounds like it's a separate.
It's pretty
pianist,
amazing. Well, she's doing those like and of 4 and of 2 rhythms that you
Yeah.
would hear like Red Garland do in Miles's band.
Yes.
And then Miles is usually back phrasing on stuff.
Yep.
She's kind of like is that whole band by herself.
I know. And she would have heard Miles on those Vanguard gigs
Yeah.
with either Red Garland or maybe Wynton Keller, or maybe even Bill Evans during that time, very much of that style. So she was the real deal.
I love that was from Gaslight Square, which is literally like 2 blocks that way.
Yeah. So anyway, fast forward. So Shirley famously, why do we use the word famously so much? That's really gotten to our vernacular. I was watching our episode the other day.
It's famously really infected our vernacular, yeah.
Shirley infamously was
Well, that's not
Shirley took a number of years off, kind of from the mid 60s. She did a little bit of recording here and there, but pretty much till like the late 70s to raise her family, her daughter. She was married for she had been married since I think the mid 50s when she was relatively young. And really was just living in DC, like, because this kind of like, for whatever reason, like she never really became like a huge star. She was known, but it was never like whatever. And she wanted to raise her family and stuff. So she kind of came, by the 70s, it was a little bit of a lost time for this kind of stuff if you weren't already well established. She made a great record in 79 that I'll recommend if people want to go on a deep dive, Lazy Afternoon on Steeplechase, that was really the product of Billy Hart and Buster Williams, I think it was, kind of recommending her. And that was sort of the beginning of her getting back into it in the 80s and like especially in Europe. Going to the North Sea Jazz Festival, the head of the festival there was a big promoter of hers and kind of led up to this renaissance at the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s on Verve Records. Shout out Richard Seidel, who signed her and was really kind of the promotional architect behind the possibility of her having this third act at this time. And that leads to Here's to Life, and the idea of like really Shirley Horn and Johnny Mandel. Johnny Mandel, composer of Shadow of Your Smile, the theme from MASH.
Emily,
Sinatra arranger, Count Basie arranger, Tony Bennett, soundtrack to the Sandpiper. I mean, legend, but maybe a little bit more behind the scenes, but wrote all this great music and was a great arranger. So Richard Seidel had the idea about putting them together. Shirley had already been singing, or maybe it was Shirley's idea or their idea, whatever. Shirley was down with it because she'd already been singing a bunch of Johnny Mandel's compositions. And that's what this record is about. So let's listen to the first track. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're not going to listen to all of it. We'll probably come back to it for some highlights. But this is Here's to Life by Artie Butler with lyrics by Phyllis Molinari.
No complaints and no regrets. I still believe in chasing dreams and placing bets. But I have learned that all you give is all you get. So give it all you've got. I had my share. I drank my fill. And even though I'm satisfied, I'm hungry still. to see what's down another road beyond a hill, and do it all again. So here's to life, and every joy it brings. So here's to life, to dreamers and their dreams. Funny how the time just flies, how love can go from warm hellos to sad goodbyes, and leave you with the memories you've memorized to keep your winters warm. For there's no yes in yesterday, and who knows what tomorrow brings or takes away. As long as I'm still in the game, I want to play for laughs, for life, for love. So here's to life, and every joy it brings. Here's to life, for dreamers and their dreams. May all your storms be weathered, and all that's good get better. Here's to life, here's to love, here's to you.
All right, I'm gonna pause it there because we're gonna come back to that. I know you like that part. I just feel like the next part's gonna. You all right there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm fine.
You right there, big guy.
It's I was just lots of thoughts on that one. First of all, like you really can't sing it like that unless you've been around the block a few times.
Yes.
Right? There is something amazing about youth, and there is something invigorating about youthful musicians. We just last week listened to you and Joshua Redman and Brian Blade when you all were super young, and the energy's all this fire. Yeah. But there's something that's not. But there's no way that band at that time could have come close to recreating something like this. You just have to have decades of being beaten down by life a little bit.
Yes,
and just feeling all of these things and contemplating them.
Yeah.
I think to to be a sensitive artist on top of it, to just already be Shirley Horn, and then to express that.
That's grown folks delivery right there.
100%. And then also, it makes me a little bit sad because you know how much I love orchestras. I love an orchestra so much, and it's a gear that we're just not going to get very much of anymore.
Let's bring it back, man.
I tried. It's tough. It's hard. It's hard. It's very expensive.
I know.
And we're just not set up for it. Like we were set up for orchestras for the longest time.
I know.
Not that they weren't expensive even back in
They used to have them at like every like radio station or local television. My dad, when he was in high school, played in like the NBC affiliate in Charlotte, North Carolina, in like the band, the orchestra, you know?
That's what I'm saying. Just to have a big string section at your disposal, have horns at your disposal, wind woodwinds at your disposal. As a musician, I know it's great. We can do everything in a computer now, and it's fantastic. But man, you can't tell me that the human beings, probably 50 or 60 of them in that recording session, getting together and making music all in one room isn't a special thing. Like, that is a special endeavor.
Absolutely.
It's a monumental task. Johnny Mandel is incredible at this.
Yeah.
And it really makes it. There's no way that you can get, I think, as emotionally charged with computers. I know that it's different.
You're trying not to be a Luddite, but you know what? Embrace your Luddite.
No. It's not even a Luddite thing. It's just like, there is something about human beings, dozens of them in a room,
I know,
building chords together.
Well, and especially for something like this, a song like this. And look, this became, famously Shirley's signature song from this point on. And she wasn't the only one to sing it. Actually, this was originally written, like, this is a very modern standard. I always thought at the time that this was like an old standard because it's got that sound to this recording. But Artie Butler wrote this like in the mid 80s or like something. Yeah, no, late 80s. And it was originally for Peggy Lee. And I think she did end up recording it, maybe. I'm not even sure. But no, she didn't. Shirley was the first one to record it. Barbra Streisand recorded. I don't know if you've heard that version. I should have pulled that up. I love Barbra Streisand. It's not Shirley Horn though, because once you get a signature song, it's like it's very hard for anyone else to do this. Other people have done it. It's fun. We just did it. Is it our signature song?
I regret doing that. Now, after listening again, I regret.
But I mean, she just, like you say, she brings the lifetime experience: a mother, an artist, a wife, a citizen, a human.
It's just
And I think back to the brief little moments I got to be around her. I got to hear her sing this with the Metropole Orchestra.
Amazing.
Live. I think that was in 92 or 93. No, 94 at North Sea Jazz Festival. And I can tell you it was every bit as thrilling as listening. Actually, more so, because it's like you're sitting right there.
Yeah.
And her intensity, but also, like, to me, that is such a mature, patient reading of that song. And then Mandel's arrangement. Like, you couldn't have had a 22-year-old Mandel be able to write like that.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, the restraint. There's a lot of sophistication there, but how he matches her delivery and tone. And this track's a little, we're going to talk about how this actually went down, because this is one of only 2 tracks that they recorded all together with the strings, with Shirley and the trio together in one room.
Yeah.
And as you say, they really gives you that gravitas, that connection. But it's really a stunning thing. And I mean, he's got the classic Hollywood strings thing that brings the nostalgia, but there's very much like a modern sound to it. You know what I mean? As well. It's not just like a throwback thing. The sound is so great. Al Schmidt, he was the engineer on this and all the string stuff. And then David Baker, the great David Baker, did the trio recordings with Shirley in New York.
There's something kind of odd about the way her voice is recorded on this that works. It almost makes it timeless. You're like, wait, is this 1992?
I know.
Or is this 1962? Like, there's something in the way that her voice is, and I don't know what that is. I'm sure there's engineers that can help me out there, but in the chat. But man, I'll tell you what, that's as good as a ballad can get. That is, and there's a couple of little things that I think that tip it off in the songwriting, that it's a little bit more modern. But one thing that I think that Shirley Horn does that is crucial for this song is it's never super sappy. Like, she doesn't overindulge in it.
No.
She doesn't throw anything away. And then there's a couple of moments in the arrangement that, like you said, like Johnny Mandel is a grown person.
Yeah.
Like when it just breaks down to just the piano.
Yes. Oh.
At the end.
And that we think about, well, that's not the part that he arranged. That absolutely is the part to give that space. Because Shirley, I heard she could do this, just her at the piano.
Sure.
No problem.
Yeah.
And it was great.
That is a strong, confident choice.
Yes.
And that's the right choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's their choice.
It's their choice and it's the right choice.
Yeah, but just like we talked about with Marvin Gaye, like sometimes what's not being played, like when they didn't have the snare drum on that, on what's the last track? Make me want to holler. Remember, it was like no snare. It was the Inner City Blue. I mean, like these kind of things, man. They can be everything. They're what you're taking away. And her playing, and then those octaves. This was one note or octave down the left hand. I don't think anyone did it better than her.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Shout out to the harpist.
Oh, the harpist killing it,
holding it down.
And the most thrilling part we're going to get to later.
I can't believe you cut it off where you cut it off.
Well,
but
we got it coming, man. There's a form to it. Okay, so that's the first track, and then Well, check this out too. Johnny Mandel had a really interesting. He produced this, arranged this, was and won a Grammy for the arrangements on this. But this was kind of his concept or his observations about Shirley with piano.
She's at the piano. She's able to totally control her environment. You know, it's like she said, my voice comes from the piano, and it's. For her to sing without playing the piano is kind of like having to rub your head and pat your stomach. You know, it doesn't. Some people can't do it.
Some people can't.
I've heard like Sting can't sing without playing the bass. Like he's got to mimic the bass when he sings.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
For some people, I think that's just a muscle memory thing.
Yeah. And then this was Johnny Mandel.
Shirley Horn is the one singer who all the great singers, Peggy Lee, for instance, who I adore, Carmen McRae. She's the one. Shirley is the one singer they all bow down to.
That's saying some Carmen McRae and Peggy Lee. So there's that. Okay, so now we're going to listen to the second track, which I love, Come a Little Closer.
Great track.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. This is my Desert Island track. Bam.
All right.
I can't hold back on
Bam.
that. Yeah, and because it's a 2-for-1. This is a medley. This is Come a Little Closer and Wild as the Wind. And so we should talk about two... this is not, there's a bunch of Mandel. Oh, A Time for Love. We haven't got to that. There's like 3 Johnny Mandel compositions on here as well. But we're going to start with Come a Little Closer.
By the way, this medley,
Yeah.
expertly executed the transition.
Oh, I've got that queued up for you. Is that something that might interest you?
It is, very much so.
I love the sound of the piano on this record. Her clusters, me likey.
Do you know where they recorded this?
This was at, I think it was at Power Station. I'm not sure. 3 notes.
Come a little closer, I will sing you my song. Just a little closer, it won't take very long. It's late and we can't play this piano too loud.
Her
'Cause the neighbors upstairs are asleep and dreaming.
Okay, I just got to note something. She said, dreaming. She did not play, she played the chords the way like you or I would play behind a singer. Like not exactly, because you don't, I don't know how.
She was like, dreaming.
Yeah, that's the way everybody would do it if you're singing. But like she perfectly accompanies herself, and you might say, oh, she knows what she's going to play. But again, that's like trying to do this. I don't know if that's what Mandel meant, but check it out.
'Cause the neighbors upstairs are asleep and dreaming.
That's crazy.
Come a little closer, I will tell you my happiness.
Oh, this is one of my favorite voice things ever coming up here.
Wow.
Sweetly.
Her level of
Come a
patience,
little closer,
off the charts.
and I will sing my song. A little closer. It won't take
Man, this is the epitome of making really hard stuff at the piano sound so easy.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Making hard stuff sound easy, she was the master of that.
Yeah, the accompaniment game is so strong.
Yeah.
Is so strong. The voicing game is
To be able to control
incredible.
a piano like this is so, we know, it's so hard.
a little closer
Just a
crazy.
than we were before.
Well done.
So this is the transition into Richard Todd at the French horn. We're going to be hearing him later.
It's great, man.
Love me, say you do.
This was all tracked together. I can confirm that. Sounds like she tracked the trio and then added the vocals she was playing while she was doing it.
Let me fly away with you.
And they tracked all this just trio first without the work.
For my love is like the wind, and wild is the wind.
You hear Shirley Horn do this a lot in her accompaniment. Chord, 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 chord.
Yeah.
Give me
Chord.
more.
If I did it, it'd be like chord,
Caress.
chord. You like those voicings on those strings?
I
that
really do.
something? Is that
I
something
really
might
do like them, yeah.
Satisfy
So what happened
this
here?
hungriness.
These strings, they just played this the way they did. And I heard her do this many times, this tune, just with the trio. They just recorded the way they normally do in New York. And they sent it out. Mathis wrote the arrangement
Let the
around it.
wind blow.
They recorded it in Hollywood with the orchestra.
He's matching
Yes.
a lot of her voicings.
Yep. And then adding some little things,
Yep.
taking away some little things. The mix is incredible. Shout out David Baker and Al Schmidt, the great Al Schmidt.
Nice.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just, you know,
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
yeah. And then I'll just this is a fun thing. That's Wild as the Wind. Check this out. This is also Wild as the Wind.
Love me,
1961.
love
Yeah.
me, say you do. Let me fly away with you.
So that's kind of where she was coming from. You know, she lived with these songs for many, many years.
That's a great tune, man. I love
Yeah.
the melody.
yeah, it's so great.
Cool.
Yeah, so like I said, that's how they did it. It was very. I mean, this has certainly been done before, but it's not as easy as it sounds. I know as an arranger, I've done this a little bit where you've already got the tracks, and it's like it can be a little disorienting because like, where do I fit in? How do I not just make it window dressing or just padding and like put some interesting things in there? I think it was. Oh yeah, where do you start in Here's to Life? Is the only ones that they recorded all together in the same room with the orchestra and everything. Everything else was just a trio.
Yeah.
Shirley doing her thing. And so for it to feel like for Mandel to be able to give that addition without it overpowering
Yeah.
the trio, because when you hear her do these songs around this time with just the trio, there was nothing missing. But obviously the bigger arrangement makes it more grandiose. But how do you do that when she starts with just that? And I think it's like matching the voicings. Very simple, very patient. Not just matching the voicings and the harmony, but like matching the vibe. You know?
Yeah,
it's-
you want to keep a lot of space. And I think Johnny Mandel nails that. You
Yeah.
know, just footballs in the string
Yeah,
parts, you know?
yeah.
And then adding some spice with the brass and with the woodwinds as the tune develops a little bit. I think that's the way to go.
Absolutely. So let's listen. This is track number 3. We're not going to... Because I love her comping on this.
How am I to know?
So how am I to know?
And her, yeah, how am I to know?
If it's really love.
And her back phrasing. Is that what you call that, back phrasing?
That's found its way here.
But her comping is on top, right?
Oh, how am I to know? Will it linger on
It sounds like a different pianist is playing.
and leave me then? I dare not guess at this strange happiness.
Somebody give that Richard Todd a Grammy.
Oh,
That French horn.
Killing it.
how
good.
am I to know?
That song we
Can
do.
it be that love has come to stay here?
Woo! 9 descending. Steve Williams on drums, Charles Abels on bass. It's such a cool solo. It's like, it's one of those, it shouldn't be as good as it is. It's so understated, you know? But it's like everything she's doing in there is so, like if you saw the transcription, you'd be like, that's a cool solo. But like her execution and like her swing and the blues stuff and her left hand competent, she's pushing through it. It's such a great segue between that amazing singing. So, okay, we're moving on to track number 4, A Time for Love. Now, so this is one we talked about in 91, You Won't Forget Me, with Miles guesting on that. This record, very interesting. Wynton Marsalis is guesting on 2 tracks.
Ever heard of him?
Ever heard of him? And this is coming right, well, it's not right after, but it was a little bit of a beef between Wynton and Miles, famously. Did you know about that?
I've heard rumblings.
Yes.
Yeah. What do we know about that?
Well,
what can we say about that?
That's for another podcast.
Oh, okay. We're going to do a whole Wynton Miles beef podcast?
Yeah,
Got it.
it had kind of de-escalated by this point. But
Can we do a whole trumpet player? We could do a whole jazz musician beef.
Trumpet players get a little passive-aggressive or a little aggressive sometimes.
It's a hard instrument. I think they're...
So is piano. We got 88 keys. What do they have? 3. Come on, man.
Yeah, but they've got all the same notes.
This is A Time for Love.
A time for summer skies, for hummingbirds and butterflies.
I wonder if Miyazaki was a fan of Shirley Horn. There's a lot of
For tender words
Studio Ghibli
Right.
chords.
that harmonize with love.
So this is another beautiful ballad, of course. We're going to go forward to Wynton's solo on here, which is a lot of fun.
A time for time for holding hands.
Great playing.
Together.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most crystal clear trumpet sound.
It's very clear. My only minor quibble bit with that is like there's a little bit of a disconnect on that. I think he tracked it after the orchestra. Like that's the only time on this record where it feels like everybody pieced it together. Great playing, beautiful. But there's not, I would have loved to hear some more like Shirley and Wynton kind of interaction. But maybe that's not what was needed on this.
It's definitely not as effective as the Miles thing that we heard earlier. you know?
But maybe that's Miles had lived a life by this point. Wynton was, still a relatively young guy. But I mean, his playing on it, it's just as usual. Wynton is
always, the playing is great.
Return to Paradise. This is great. This percussion stuff was added later. A little more the jumpy, Errol Garner-esque piano playing.
Come, my love, with me across.
And I think these are all all these ones that she had done with the trio were her arrangements, trio arrangements. Then they adapted it out, of course. But she had been doing some of these for years like this. So that's a fun one.
And this whole
Skipping through
album,
some great stuff.
This
but-
whole album has just like such a rich sonic scape to it. Like
Yeah.
the whole landscape of it feels very, very airy, like a little bright. And there's a lot of room. Like there's a lot of space in both the arrangements and the performances, but in the sound itself. I really dig it, man. It's really dreamy, actually.
Very dreamy. There is a lot of space, which is amazing because there was such an opportunity. That's why, like, Mandel used so much restraint on this, even though he gets a little busy at times, not too big, like busy in a good way, but there was so many, like, there's such an opportunity to over-arrange when you already know what the rhythm section and the vocalists are doing. You know what I mean? Because it's like, oh, I can fill in every single hole. I don't have to just sit here and pad because I know the voicings she's going to play. I can match that. I can add little things. And but he holds back, and then when he does go in there, it's so thrilling, you know, and interesting.
It is really a challenging task. And it doesn't seem like it would be. It's like, oh, no, we already have everything ready to go. But you're right. You sort of like inclination could be to fill up as much space as you can think of.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, I've been tasked with a similar project, and I know you have too.
Yeah.
Of writing something after the fact of something that's already been recorded.
Yeah, I find it more difficult because I feel like when you're writing the arrangement, and I've kind of done in between too, where there's already arrangement, which is with a lot of these, like Shirley already had her arrangements, and they weren't going to change that really.
Have you ever got a voice memo of someone just singing the song into their phone, and then you have to do a string arrangement around
I
it?
think
I've gotten that
the same
before.
person as you, actually, perhaps. Yeah. Okay, so I want to play. I want to play two more.
No, hold on before we move on.
Sorry.
Too quickly. Tell me your strategy for that. Like when you have something that's pre-recorded, what are you looking to do?
Well, I look at that as more like less what are the possibilities that you want to do, and more like, okay, what's sort of the icing that I can put on this at most of the places, but then try to find some places where there's enough space, not every time, but some of the spaces where you can do something really cool and interesting.
Yeah.
Because if you only just put the pad and the icing, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
But it's like, because when you're doing the arrangement at the beginning and you're building up from that, you have to build in things, I think, into the arrangement that are really, and normally I would do this, I think just being a pianist or whatever, from the rhythm section and piano standpoint. So it's like you start there and then you start adding some things that match with that. This is the opposite. All that's there, including the rhythm section. So it's like you have to add things on. So it's like you're listening to what's happening. You're trying to match. And
But even that process, even the fact that this is how they're going to do it, I think tells you a little bit, informs you of how you might write.
Right.
They don't want the orchestra to be the featured player of
Right.
this, right? Not like Here's to Life, where it's like it's all about that orchestra
Exactly.
from the beginning. And it's like if you are putting something on the top of like an already pre-recorded track, it's like, okay, well, this is where they want this. They want this as icing mostly, and then you kind of have to pick your spots.
And if you pick them, the great thing is you know, or you should know, what the final product is going to sound like. When we arrange, a lot of times, especially for like the rhythm section, any kind of solo, there's a certain amount of openness that we're like, okay, let the magic happen at the session.
Yeah.
But this is kind of like, okay, the magic's already happened. You need to bring some magic, but whatever you record with the strings and the winds and the percussion, that's going to be the end. So like as he's listening to it come through, it's not like, oh, well, we'll see what else we can do in the next take. It's like, no, it's already done.
Yeah.
You know, so I bet he had to do some rearranging as he was going, or some taking away or something. And I do think the not writing, like this kind of arranging after, like it definitely breeds to be overwriting. And I think like laying back and letting, like he leaves the trio alone a lot, probably more than I would think to do. And that's great because the way they're playing, the way she's singing, it doesn't need anything else.
But I wonder, I don't know if this is the case, but I've had gigs like this where I've sort of overwritten on purpose.
Yeah.
With the idea of like, I'm going to give them a lot.
Yeah.
And they can take or leave what they want. But they're going to have a lot of options.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I
And
wonder.
that might have happened.
I wonder if he wrote more, but like when they heard everything, they were like, no, let's take this out of this. Or I wonder if it was like predetermined.
Oh, no, I think him being an experience, I would say that probably happened. And I'm saying at the session, he might have been like, because it's very different than like listening to the whole, like you already know a part, like the sort of foundation of the track so well.
Yeah.
He's been arranging to that. And then when you hear the strings play, like he probably immediately knew like, oh, that's too much there. And was like, okay, let's task with that. Or just wait during the mix. You can also take stuff out.
Yeah.
We've done that.
Yeah.
We've
It's
done
just for safety. If like I'd rather have something
Yeah.
that I can take away than not have anything and have to try to scramble.
But what a fun thing to do to arrange when you know you don't really need outside of those 2 tracks.
yeah.
Like you can just like, I mean, unless you're worried about somebody being like, you didn't give me enough to play, you don't have to do a lot. You don't have, you know, when you've got some great stuff happening already there. Okay, I want to play 2 more tracks. Just to this, If You Really Love Me, I want you to just hear a little of the inspiration. Shirley Horn was a big fan of Edith Piaf, as were, of course, many vocalists.
Is that the first Edith Piaf reference on the You'll Hear It podcast?
I think so, absolutely.
That might be.
This track comes directly from that. This is Hymne à l'amour, and she's singing in French, of course. Shirley's going to sing it.
Ciel bleu sur nous peut s'effondrer.
And then we're going to listen a little bit.
Shall I catch a shooting star? Shall I bring it where you are?
I love this song.
If you want me to, I will.
And this is a little bit buried at the end of the record before a classic.
You can set me any task. I'll do anything you ask. If you'll only love me still. If the sun should tumble from the sky.
She already did the woodwinds. I didn't need to get at it.
If the sea should suddenly run dry.
Yeah, so that's just, you know, we could have just listened to the whole record. That would have been fun. Please do that. Okay, so there's that. That's the second to last track. And then the last track is probably, this record's really bookended by 2 classic, like, compositions that were hugely influential on a whole generation of vocalists and just musicians in general. Here's to Life, of course, every singer and their mama has tried that. That's Shirley's song. And then Estate, which of course means summer, is the last track. So it's very interesting. I think that the 2 sort of not really the bangers, just the most classic, kind of oft repeated. But the history of this tune is actually
the Brunos, Bruno Martino, Bruno
and Bruno,
Bergetti.
exactly,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, Bruno Martino kind of had a minor hit with this, and then some others did it. And then João Gilberto in 1977 covered this in Italian, of course, right. Brazilian.
He's got such a thick Portuguese-Brazilian accent that you might confuse it for Portuguese,
Well,
but it's
I barely
very
know
much
the difference between the 2, so it sounded
Italian.
good to me.
Have you ever played this song in Italy?
Oh my God, they go crazy.
They go crazy.
They love this song.
They
It's like
sing
they're
it
not-
so loudly.
It's like this, yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Estate sei calda come
I mean,
i
if
baci
this
che
isn't
io perduto.
the lineage of Here's to Life, I don't know what is.
And Shirley loved this recording, and
Di un amore che è passato.
like a lot of people, but she ordered up some English lyrics. Put in another key.
Estate means summer, correct?
Yes. Oh. Start slow and patient, end slow and patient.
Piano playing is really some beautiful choices. Really, really good.
Estate. You bathe me in the glow of your caresses.
And you would think you need the Italian. Such a more romantic, beautiful language than English, but she kind of nails it.
You turn my timid no to eager yeses.
Vibes? You like vibes?
I love vibes, especially in an orchestra setting.
Yeah.
You sweep away my sorrow
It's incredibly well
with your
crafted song.
sigh.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Brunos for writing some
You know what I'm saying?
serious melody, serious harmony.
The Brunos. Not related.
how your golden
She waited 45
sunlight
seconds between those two phrases.
bends the
We're
willow.
here for it. Wait.
So that's how the record ends. Estate, and that's it. Can we get to some categories?
Let's do some
Are
categories.
you happy, man?
I'm I mean, this is
This is grown folks music.
this
You know
is
what?
like
Now that you're over 40, how old are you now?
46.
Welcome to the grown folks club. Now you can accept this.
I'm an old
music.
guy.
Slow down. No, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
Joke's on you. I've been in my 40s my entire life. Okay. So Desert Island Tracks, you already have Come a Little Closer and Wild is the Wind.
I mean, this is a 2 for 1, so
Yeah,
and they're great.
I have Here's to Life.
Oh, you're
yeah,
really
I know.
going out on a limb with that one.
Shocker. It's just too good, man. It's
I
just
wanted
too
to do
good.
that, but I wanted to leave you that because I stole yours last week.
Apex Moments.
Apex moments. So I think the last, I'll just play the last minute or so of Wild is the Wind. I mean, there's so many apexes on this, but
Cling to me.
this is the last minute. It's just been very patient, beautiful reading of this.
For we're creatures of the wind, and wild is the wind.
The way the strings move
wind.
and start.
The wind.
That's the most moving.
Great chord.
Minor. Good call, man. So check this out.
Is my love
Just trio.
for you.
Beautiful. Gorgeous.
And the only thing added to that, like he could have put strings all over this, just that little bit of bells. Everything else was just a trio. The
Yeah.
strings moving with those triplets before it, man, it's so well crafted.
Yeah, he has great little sparkly things in the percussion all over this album.
Yeah.
I would like to now hear the end of Here's to Life, please. Thank you. I've been thinking about it since you cut us off so
So this
rudely.
is your apex moment.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to go right to where we came out. This is great. This is iconic. Should this be on our Bespoke iconic list of the way records
No
start?
complaints.
How could it be better?
It's so good.
Here's to you.
Do it, Richard. Come on, Richard.
Should we still play it underneath that?
Richard Todd, ladies and gentlemen.
Richard Todd, killing it.
Damn.
May
He inspired
all
Shirley.
your storms be weathered, and all that's good get better.
That's right.
Incredible.
Here's to life. Here's to love. Here's to you.
Descending triads there. Amazing.
Oh, this
Well
last
done.
chord.
Well done.
Oh, man.
Johnny Mandel.
This is like being in New York, Upper East Side. You're in what's the Algonquin, one of those hotels where everything is just perfect. You get your little martini. Or
Really, really nice stuff.
Why is that the classiest drink
I
I
don't-
can think of?
it's-
Come up with something.
I don't
A
know.
Manhattan. How about a Manhattan? You're in Manhattan.
Manhattan is old-fashioned, maybe.
Old fashioned.
Yeah, that's I mean,
Everything. Everyone's wearing perfect clothes.
and the
I'm in
French
a
horn,
t-shirt.
man. Again, if you want to talk like a little arranging thing here, you want to break your audience's heart a little bit.
Yeah.
Throw it to the horn.
Or break their spirits, depending on who you have playing for you.
Yeah, not every horn player can make
That's
it
true.
sound that
like,
good, man.
That
That-
boo-doo-doo-doo, did. Like that
Really
goes up
cool.
so high there. Richard Tide killed it.
Dude.
And did you hear? He didn't just go up. Like he kind of vibed his way up.
Yeah,
into it,
man.
You know, which is
It's not easy. It's not an easy instrument.
it's not an easy instrument.
Not an easy instrument. My son is, in 7th grade. He
Yeah.
plays the tuba, and he's got they've got a huge band at his school. So like they actually break up the 7th grade band into different sections. So there's just the brass section.
Nice.
Rehearses every day together. And he's like, I was like, how's band class going? He's like, oh, it's good. The
French horns are fucking it up. Oh, sorry.
the horns are. He's like, I think horns hard, and I'm like, yeah, horns hard, man. Horns
It is
hard. Yeah.
It is hard. All right, Bespoke Spotify playlist. Why are we promoting Spotify? Can't it just be a Bespoke playlist?
Yeah, it could.
Okay. What do you got?
I had music for grown folks, but you've said it like 5 times during this
I didn't-
podcast. So
no, that makes it perfect.
Yeah.
Music for grown folks.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it could also be baby making music for sure, but it's like baby making music for grown folks that are still of the age to be able to make babies. That's okay.
We could call it a.
It's not really baby making music.
Can you stop saying that? Can we call it maybe like old fashioned on the Upper East Side? How about that?
That would be nice. I like that.
All right.
I'm gonna call it. I got Slow Burn Serenade.
It's great,
Man,
great playlist
thank
title.
you.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole record, like each track individually, but even more so, like on the macro level, like the whole record is just a slow burn, and then it's bookend. It does kind of get a little bit out of the ballad thing at different places, but the beginning and the end are so epic, old Hollywood classic that it's got so much in them. It's just a slow burn. Up next, these would be other albums that you think would pair nicely with this.
I'm going to make a zig and then a zag. So
Okay.
my zig is Bill Evans from Left to Right. Ooh. So this is an album where Bill's playing piano and Rhodes, and I just think the sound of that album has a somewhat similar quality to this, and it's a very romantic album. And then stay with me here.
Okay.
Nora Jones, Come Away With Me. So we're talking about a slow burn.
Man, this was right around that same period too.
Well, that was about 10 years later.
Was it?
Yeah, 2002 or so. Slow burn,
Yeah.
tasty pianist,
Yeah.
singing at the same time,
Right.
but
Hey,
very
yeah.
understated.
Yeah.
Whole different thing.
Yeah, no, I think I like that.
I
I
think it
like
would
that.
pair well.
You would go into that. I think those are good.
We should do a Come Away With Me.
That's a great
over
record.
here, yeah.
I think the only thing with that, and really with any of these records, this is such an epic album. If you listen to this whole thing from beginning to the end, I think you're done for the night. Like this is be very hard to like go right into something else. It's such an emotional. It's not an emotional roller coaster. It's just such a deep, mature, reflective. Like her precision. We didn't even really talk about her as a reader of lyrics. I think Shirley Horn is unmatched. It's interesting. Mandel talking about
The
Johnny
Johnnies.
Mathis.
Got the Brunos
they're
and the
both
Johnnies.
great. Johnny Mathis, great writer arranger too. But Johnny Mandel, Peggy Lee was another one, great reader of lyrics that he had a big affinity for. But I think that like her choosing of the songs on here, I mean, this is just so much emotional, romantic life depth to these that it'd be kind of hard to go into something else. But I'll throw a couple in there anyway. Betty Carter, Dropping Things. That was the same year. That was Verve.
Interesting.
That was another vocalist. Very different kind of record, but another really mature, amazing musician, vocalist, Betty Carter.
Good.
That's one of her best records.
Good call. Good
Also,
call.
Carmen McRae sings Monk, another one that I was listening to a lot, and I got to hear her doing that.
I don't know that one.
Great record. Is that on Verve? I think that's on Verve too, yeah.
Quibble Bits.
Or RCA Novus, one of those.
What do you got?
Quibble Bits. I said none, but let me hear yours first.
Okay.
Because I just want to hear, I think I might possibly have the same one. I want to hear it come out of your mouth before I.
So we talked about the arranging process and the recording process
Yeah.
and how, aside from, was it just Here's to Life that was recorded all together? Or
Here's to Life and Where Do You Start?
Right.
Great Bergman's song, Alan and Marilyn Bergman, and Johnny Mandel.
So
Great song.
as good as Here's to Life is with the arrangement,
Yeah.
the way it is and the way it was recorded, would this album have been better had the whole thing been recorded in that way?
No,
Okay.
not possible to be better.
I'm just saying,
It would be great. It would
it's
be
so
different.
stunning.
It would be different.
But wouldn't you like to hear a version of this where everything was done in a big studio in LA with a huge string section, all there on the day, and the arrangements were bespoke for this rather than just layering the orchestra over what she was already doing? I'm just for the sake of argument.
You know, I think it sounds like that to most people, including me. I mean, I kind of knew about it because I knew some of the people. I remember when they were talking about doing this, and I knew Richard Seidel a little bit and some of the different people, and I heard her a lot. But I think if you're hearing this, it doesn't sound like, I would challenge people with track 1 and track 5 if you think they sound any different.
I think Here's the Life definitely has a different vibe than everything
Well, it's
else.
different too because it's not like, it's very much an orchestra, and although the trio, I believe, is on there, and she's playing piano some,
Yeah.
but it's very much a Shirley and orchestra. It's a very specific kind of thing. But I definitely hear where you're coming from. I think that would be an interesting record. But to me, you would gain some things in terms of that collegiality, I guess you'd call it. But I also think I think the trio would play a little bit different when you've got an arrangement and the orchestra's there and you're kind of like they were able to do what they normally do, which was a very restrained and specific thing that had little things jump out at different times. I feel like I've been on these orchestra sessions when you're playing with the rhythm section, you kind of like, wait, can I play here? Am I matching? Like you play in a different way. So I think something would be lost there.
Very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you got?
I got no quibble bits because I love this record.
Okay.
Yep. Snobometer. I'm going to give it a 3.
I'm going to give it a 4 only because it is very sleepy. Like it is very slow paced.
Very slow paced.
And so you have to be ready for that, I think.
So snobs are ready for that?
I think if no one knew this or knew Shirley Horn or knew about this genre,
Yeah.
it would be tough without some kind of like, well, I want to, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like you have to really lean into like, we're here for a while and we're not doing much.
So that would actually push it more towards snobby then. Because Aunt Linda would be like, I need some more. I don't know who this is. Whereas Ethan Iverson would be like, yeah, I'm a snob about music. This is her specialty. I'm good with it all being.
Exactly.
Oh, that's why you had 4 and I had 3. Okay.
Yeah, I got 4, which
You
is
know
still
what?
not very snobby.
No, that's true. I mean, this is like one of the best-selling jazz records of
It's all good.
the night of all time.
It's
actually.
not very snobby, but I do feel like because it is slower paced and there's no like real like, down, some kind of big swinging number in there that, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
some kind of bigger,
Yeah,
showy piece or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Oh, it'd be so great if it had that.
It would not be. It doesn't need it at all. But
Is it better than KOB?
No.
Man, I wrote no, but excruciatingly close. And
You
I
can't
think
just say no. You can't just say yes and no.
I'm going to say equal.
Are you really?
I really am.
Oh my God.
Because I feel like,
Caleb, can we tally how many equals that is for Peter?
well, but those are great records, man. Because to me, KOB is amazing, but it's not like it's the greatest record ever and everything else fails in comparison. Okay. I mean, what would you say, Secrets? Better than KOB? You love that record.
I think I might, yeah.
Okay. Accoutrements.
I have 5.
Yeah,
Fine.
I'll give it 7 just because it's Shirley, but it's a little bit of weird spacing
Yeah.
with the big logo and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
I'm not crazy about that, but it doesn't matter.
We talked last episode about when we were talking about Joshua Redman's Spirit of the Moment, 98, 95.
Yeah.
90s were an interesting aesthetic time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a high point.
Yeah.
All right, we are shilling for comments, ratings, and reviews. We're threatening to bring the GALA back. Can we bring it back?
The gentleman and ladies agreement.
Exactly. Tell them what it is.
So I don't know.
It's like the snobometer to me. I really don't understand it.
And I don't understand the
Gentlemen's and
GALA.
ladies agreement. We provide you, if you've made it this far, I think you either fell asleep and you're just waking up, or you actually enjoy what the hell we're talking about here, which is really, we're not talking about anything except just listening to, enjoying, and connecting with the humanity.
That's right.
Of us, with you guys, with everything, of this great music. In this turbulent, crazy world that we have, we've got things like Here's to Life. And so that's really what we're celebrating here. We're having fun with it because this music is amazing, but it's meant to be lived with. You know what I mean? Shirley Horn isn't with us anymore, but I still remember the last time I got to hear her live and got to hang out with her a little bit, and her spirit is still here. So we're trying to keep that alive. And we're doing that for free for you guys, although it's not free. There's an agreement that you have made by staying. If you still are listening, you are agreeing. So are you there? You're there. Gentlemen and ladies agreement. We give you a free podcast. You go and leave us a rating, a review, or a comment.
Some kind of engagement.
Or no, both. You got to go leave a rating and review on Apple or Spotify, and then
That's
you got to
right.
go to the YouTube comments.
That's right.
And say GALA. You can say something else too. GALA adhered to
GALA, gentlemen
G-A-L-A.
and ladies. And you could comment that on Spotify as well.
You can.
Yeah,
we
even
probably
though-
don't see it because we haven't figured that out yet,
Yeah.
but you can do it. Speaking of comments, we've got a couple. You want to read one of these and I'll read one?
So this is off of YouTube. This is from Katie Day. You guys are not only the best music podcast, but simply the best music-related material on the internet, educational or otherwise. Thank you for your service. Salute. Thank you, Katie Day.
Katie, you are not overstating our level of expertise, I would say. Dane B 5783 says, I need this pod to stay forever. It's great. Such a good format to go over classic albums and still keep the essence of the old pod with covering the musical theory and ideas going on in the music. Appreciate you guys. We appreciate you. We appreciate everybody who's listening and watching. And we hope peace and love is enveloping you in this world and with your love. Why are you looking at me like that, man? I'm getting sentimental, man. We listen to Here's the Life, man.
Here's to pod.
Here's to pod.
Here's to pod.
Papa Pod. Till next time.
You'll hear it.